Well, hello, everybody. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. If you're new here, welcome. My name is Angela. I am a full time voiceover artist and audiobook narrator, and my channel is dedicated to those of you just getting started out in this wonderful world of voiceover and audiobook narration. And through my channel, I share with you some tips and tricks and techniques that I use every day in my own voiceover business, and I answer your questions in these weekly Q&A sessions, which have turned into more of a wonderful community chat that we gather together around every week and have conversations about things. And I love getting your input, and perhaps a question that you have will help somebody else. Maybe that's too shy, or maybe didn't think of the question until you asked it. So please ask questions. If you're not new here, then every week we have a poll to sort of get conversations started. And this week, the poll is, have you had any audiobook training? Right? I don't like the bubble. Hold on. Let's change that. Let's go back to this. There we go. That's a little bit easier to read for me. The bubble is a little overwhelming. Okay, so today's poll, have you had any audiobook training? And the reason that I ask that is because I myself got to a place where I was like, okay, I can figure all this stuff out, right? I love books. I love reading. It's just reading, right? But I think at some point, again, with the whole you don't know what you don't know, that you start to miss maybe a performance idea, something that you can implement, how to remove noise, how to get your noise floor right. There's going to be something at some point that you're going to need training in. And training is an investment, yes, but it is an investment in you and your audiobook business, right? I still learn something new every day and implement it into my own audiobook narration. You just continue to improve with the more practice and training that you get. So audio training in any way, shape, or form is good training. And I'm rambling. So 28 votes so far. And we have 14% of you said yes. Great. 57% of you said no. That's cool. And 29% of you said not yet, but plan to. Good. So for those of you that said no, then you guys are all naturals. And don't need any training, and that's cool too. But I think at some point you might find that a little bit of additional perspective, insight, information, training is going to be advantageous in moving your audiobook business forward. There's nothing wrong with training, right? I recommend training for everybody, myself included. It can only move us forward, right? All right, let's jump on over to the comments and see who is here. Let me get rid of this banner and go over to the comments. Well, we got lots of people here, 37 of you here today. Thanks for joining. All right, let's see who's first in. Annie Waybright. Good morning, Angela and everybody. Yes, good morning, good morning. Good morning to all of you. Kelly Legg. Hi, everyone. A total newbie here. Well, welcome, Kelly. We're glad to have you. Next up is Chris. Hey, Chris. Any advice on how to get the first chapter recorded? I've struggled for weeks and am ready to throw in the hat. Should I start with a different book? Maybe record chapter 2 first? And then I also see you continued down here. I should say this is my own book and I have no deadlines. I would have to ask, first and foremost, what is holding you back from recording chapter 1? Is it just the getting started part? Is it just jumping in? Is it the intimidation of jumping in? There was another comment that I had just seen about, was it Shannon? No, I think it was Annie down here giving you some great advice. Chris VGL, sometimes doing things out of order in a different way is how I get myself past a mental block. Starting with chapter 2 is exactly what I would do in your position. I would have to echo that. And if it's your own book, then obviously you don't need to read through it again to get a good grasp on who you are as the narrator, what is the purpose, who is the audience, because you know all of that stuff because you wrote the book. So in that respect, if that helps, then definitely start with a different chapter. Start with chapter 2, and then once you're in the groove and you're warmed up and the intimidation factor is gone, then go back to chapter 1. I would echo that. I think that's a good strategy. But really maybe figure out why it is that you're having a hard time getting started and maybe address that too. Shannon? Hello, Shannon. Good morning. I have a question. How do you address the perfectionist in yourself when recording? Also, what are some suggestions for promoting an audiobook? The addressing the perfectionist, that is one of the toughest things I think to overcome for most of us is the perfectionist, especially when you become aware of everything you're not supposed to do, right? Or everything that you're supposed to remove, all of the bad stuff, the breaths, the mouth noise, the over enunciating, the sounding like you are reading words, right? I think you're going to have to come to a point where you're going to have to let some of this stuff go because it doesn't have to be perfect. I mean, yeah, remove the retakes and the mistakes and, make sure there's no cat meowing in the background and stuff like that. But it doesn't have to be perfect. You're a human reading a story to other humans. It doesn't have to be anything other than you reading the story, giving it life, right? So let it go. Yeah, I had to do the same thing, right? Because you have all of these things in your head. Should I have given this more gravitas? Should I have maybe left more of a pause here? I mean, you're always going to have that. That never really ends, but you really do need to let go of that perfectionist, the need to make everything perfect because there is really no such thing as being perfect. Just be you. And some of the things I can guarantee you, some of the things that you think should come out or don't need to be there, no one else is really going to hear that, right? Something that you think is a problem, maybe not even is a problem, right? You're just overthinking it. So just read the story. So just do it, right? For promoting an audiobook, social media is great for that. If you're doing like a royalty share book, I highly recommend getting involved with some promotion for the book because that just benefits not only you, of course, but the the author as well. So social media is a great platform for that. You could take a little snippet of your narration with the permission of the rights holder, which I don't think they're going to contest that at all because it's helping to promote the book. But you could take a section of that book and make it into a short clip video and promote that on social media. You could also, again, with permission from the rights holder, record it live, perhaps if you have like the ability to go live on TikTok or something like that and say, hey, this is coming soon. Look for it, around X date if you want to, or coming soon to Audible. Those kinds of things make people aware of what you're doing and what's coming out and get excited for it and to hear a little snippet of it, maybe even a live performance of it, right? Social media is really, really good for promoting audiobooks for sure. Mark is here. Good morning, Mark. Good morning, Angela. I always look forward to these lives. Thanks. I do too. I love getting together with you guys and having conversations about stuff. Mike is here. Hi, Mike. Hi, Angela. Does the ACX retail sample have to be one continuous section of the book, or can I splice together from a couple different chapters? Client just asked, never really thought about it. I don't know if there are rules that you can't use two different sections because I've come across, I've had to edit my retail sample before because, of course, the retail sample can't have curse words and stuff like that in it. So I've had to edit that out. I don't know about splicing two pieces together. I would think that someone listening to the retail sample is deciding whether or not they want to listen to this book, right? If they want to purchase the book to listen to. So you want to choose a section that's intriguing, that's a little bit of a teaser, right? That gives maybe a dramatic part of the story or the introduction, that gives sort of a synopsis on what it is that we're talking about in this book and how the narrator sounds. That's essentially what the retail sample is for. So I would think one continuous segment would be the better way to go, but I don't know if that is allowed, if what you're asking is allowed, if you can splice two pieces together. That would be a question, I think, for ACX Audible and see what they say, if they will allow that, or just try it and see what happens. I mean, the worst they could do is, or the worst that could happen is ACX says this isn't allowed. You have to choose another section, right? So I don't know, ask them and see if that's, I've never heard that question before. So that's a good question. Definitely let us know what they say. Rustic Hillbilly is here. Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. Eric. Hello, Eric. Good morning, Angela. Good morning, Eric. How you doing, buddy? Sean Luster 007. Rushing to finish last VO before VOA. Potential client. Will you read for this? Me. Script is crap. Client. I'll pay $300. Me. Script looks great. Oh, no. I hope there's some proofreading or something included in that dollar amount, perhaps. Mark Flores says, considering going full-time this year in voiceover. Good for you. I mainly do a lot of narration stuff, but not much audiobooks. May try to enter the audiobook world a bit more since I've enjoyed the ones I've done. Well, good. Audiobooks are a marathon. They are a lot of work, but they can be rewarding, right? I myself enjoy long form narration. That's sort of my niche. It's not for everybody. Some other people would prefer to record, 30-second, 60-second commercials and take their money and run to the next one. But I like the time and investment and letting myself be me, letting go of, well, I guess that's not really something that happens with characters, of course, because characters need to be their own personalities. But I feel like I'm rambling. Am I rambling? I prefer audiobooks, but they can be a lot of work. They can be a marathon for sure. But if you enjoy it, go do them. John O'Rourke says, when creating demos, do you have to public domain books, or can you use any book you like? For ACX specifically, they do say on their website that you can use any book on your shelf for a sample or a demo. And if the rights holder has any issues with that, then they will remove it. I think I'm always erring on the side of caution when it comes to someone else's intellectual property, right? Because books are copywritten, right? They have copyrights on them. So I'm always cautious about taking someone else's work and then using it for my own benefit. And I know you're not selling the sample demo. You're not claiming that you wrote it. It's just a demonstration of your voice. And I get that. But if you're just starting out and you don't have any titles under your belt to start with, I started with public domain books because they are out of copyright. But ACX in particular, they do say that you can use any book off your shelf. I hope that helps answer your question. Kara's here. Good morning, Angela and chat. Good morning, Kara. Good to see you. Michael V. Morning. Mary's here. Hey, Mary. Good morning. Happy Tuesday. Good morning, Mary. Glad you're here. Allison Bennett. Good morning. I'm nervous about training. I don't know how to pick a coach that I will connect with and how I will take criticism. I want to get better in a constructive environment. That, I think, is one of the toughest parts for anybody getting training, is making yourself vulnerable, right? Because you're laying yourself out in front of a person or a group and leaving yourself bare for anything and everything, right? But that is the only way to improve, because we get so used to hearing our own voices that we may be overlooking something. We may be overlooking sibilance or mouth noise, or maybe, it could be anything, performance-wise or audio quality-wise. Having more input into what you're doing or not doing is going to do nothing but help you. And it's tough. It's tough to lay yourself bare in front of people that you don't really know. And I get that. But it is the best way to improve. So it's hard, but worth it for sure. Totally get that. Pamela, good morning. Good morning. Michael V says, it is a wonderful world with wonderful people. Yes, this is a wonderful world. Facebook user says no, Who says no? Doreen Marcotte says no? No. For training, answering the poll, no training. Okay. Mike Christensen, also, client wants to add a URL to their closing credits. Any reason we can't add? They list minimum requirements, but not much about what you can't include. If you're going to add a URL, I think that is it directing to their website, perhaps? That's also a good question. Any URLs that I've included in an audiobook have been in the very last few words of the last chapter, not in the closing credits, but I don't know for sure if ACX has specific requirements for the closing credits. It's usually for who wrote the name of the book, who wrote the book, who read the book, and copyright information and production dates, right? I haven't heard any URLs included in it. I think if the author wants a URL or something like that included, I would include that at the very end of the last chapter of the book instead of the closing credits, just to be on the safe side. But I don't know for sure. I've never had that question asked before, and I've never been in that situation. But I would just throw it in at that point. Facebook user, who is this? Brenda Roberts. Currently in training in commercial and narration, would like formal training in audiobooks. Yeah, in training in all aspects is good because they're all different. They're all different animals. Every subsection niche of voiceover is different, and it's handled differently. So I think, and audiobooks are a completely different animal. I mean, really apart from any other type of VO, because you have file formatting standards, the performance-wise, it's still pretty much the same. Although if you get into characters, you really need to understand the characters and bring out their personality. But file formatting, I think, is one of the major hurdles for audiobooks. Shannon Flynn says, what training have you had? A lot of it is self-taught, but I did have a coach for about a year. I worked with Anthony Pica for a year. I met with him every week for a year. And he helped me a lot in every aspect, and not just audiobooks, but with my confidence, demos, the business side, anything and everything that I needed help with. He helped me for a good year. But a lot of it has just been working with other people, picking up on performance tips and perspectives and insight. And I've learned so much by just being in groups. There's just little golden nuggets that you pick up here and there. And also listening to audiobooks myself has definitely helped a lot in picking up what that narrator did. I'm like, oh, that's cool. I'm going to use that, Reading to feed the mind. I like that. I have watched your videos, but have not had official training. Yeah, watching videos is definitely one way to soak up information. And not just mine, but there's a lot of voice actors and audiobook narrators here on YouTube that have great information. And not just in the performance aspect, but also on the business side and also the technical side. So soak it all in. Find all the videos that you can, listen to what everybody has to say, take what applies and leave the rest, right? But if you come to the point where you're sort of at a plateau, or maybe you're feeling like you're just not getting to the level where you think you should be, then that's when you should probably reach out to join groups, or find a coach that you think that you can work with, that you feel comfortable with, and reach out to them and see if you can get some training and some help in improving. Chris VGL says, I've recorded chapter 1 4 times and screwed up 4 times. Now I'm struggling with doing it again. I've recorded demos with no issues. I think it's the one character that's bothering me. I so feel this in my bones, especially if you have recorded it a few times and you feel like it just wasn't right all of those times, then it definitely becomes sort of a fear factor intimidation thing. Because just like, I don't want to fail again, right? But I think, again, just like the last Q&A session we had last week about fear, you got to overcome it at some point. You really need to work through why. Why am I afraid of this? Whatever it is, why can't I move past this? Let's figure this out. Okay, so in your circumstance, it's the character, right? So do some practice, get your DAW open and just record like a test file, right? And just start playing with some character ideas, voice, accent, attitude, and just kind of get it all out into one file and then listen back and go, that's not it. That might be it. That's not it. There it is. That is the character that I want to use. And then go back into chapter 1 a lot more confident in having a direction for this particular character, right? I think that's what I would do. But I so feel that. And I'm sure a lot of us do. Shannon says, I think what helped me is I had to decide to help stay in the groove is edit when all chapters are recorded. This is in response to the person who's having a difficult time getting going on own book. I do the same thing. I record most of the time anyway. I record all of the chapters, and then once they're all recorded, I'll go back and edit them. And the reason I do that is because, as I mentioned before, we continue to improve and learn new things all the time. So there might be a new plugin, a new processing technique, a new interface, or maybe not even a new interface, but there may be something new that you can implement to make every file sound better than maybe the last book that you did. So I tend to save all of the processing and editing until the end, just kind of leaving room for something new to be implemented to improve the sound, because all the files need to sound the same, right? That consistency throughout all the files. So that's what I do. But sometimes if it's the summer here in Arizona, the air conditioner's on 90% of the day. So you got to do what you got to do. If you need to record a chapter and then edit it while the air conditioner's on, then that's what you got to do. Whatever way of recording and editing, whatever that process looks like for you, whatever's easy. But most often I'll record everything and then go back and edit it later. Tiffany's 80s Dream says, hi, Angela. Well, hello, Tiffany. How would I know if my voice is VO worthy? Do I need to sound a specific way? How can I tell if I've never had a client? I hope that makes sense. That makes perfect sense. Because this is a question that I hear a lot. If you have a voice, you are VO worthy. Because voice actors represent the world. We represent every voice in the world, right? Because everything that you need to know for voice acting can come through practice and training, right? As long as you have a voice, you can be a voice actor. Of course, with practice and training, right? Because there may be some, enunciation tips, some performance tips, audio quality tips. There could be, you could learn everything that you need to learn to be a voice actor, but you just need a voice. So you don't need to sound any specific way. You just need to sound like you. How you hear me now is how most of my voiceovers are done. I'm just talking to people. This is just me having a conversation or sharing information with people, right? I don't particularly think my voice is anything special, yet I'm a full-time working voice actor. So you don't need to sound a specific way or anything other than you. Everything else can come with practice and training. So get out there and do it. Tiffany, go do it. Chosen Light Heart says, morning from Colorado. My budget is basically non-existent, so I've been trying on my own first, make money, then get training. Slow process though. Oh yeah, I've done the same. I'm very frugal. I don't like spending money if I don't have to. So I wanted to be self-sufficient and train myself and learn everything myself first. But then when I got to sort of a plateau, like I mentioned before, that is when I reached out for help. because I needed to learn what I didn't know, right? And move forward. It's definitely an investment training, but it's an investment in you and in your business. So definitely worthwhile at some point. Shannon says, wow, you have some great promotional ideas. Well, thank you. Thank you. I hope that helps. Reading to feed the mind says, should we concentrate on reading every word is written? Is it okay to get into character, which may change words slightly? I would read, excuse me, every word as written because that is the way that it is written. And if the author chooses the whisper sync feature, you have to be, I think it's like 98% accurate. What you are allowed to do is make contractions instead of, like it is, like it's, stuff like that. But you can't change words in the content to fit your own personal needs. I mean, you can add nonverbal, like non-word, grunts and sighs and stuff. Yeah. But don't change what is written unless you think it is something that is going to be beneficial to the story and you reach out to the rights holder and maybe ask them. But then in turn, they would have to change their print copy and not all of them are going to be open to that. So definitely read what is written and do your best with it. Elizabeth says, hi, Angela. My audiobook gig just got approved to be promoted on Fiverr. Do you have any advice or tips on how to use this feature for this type of gig? Thank you so much. Yes, I actually just turned off the promotion for my audiobook gig because I've got 5 in queue and I don't need any more promotion, but it is a great feature on Fiverr and I definitely recommend, if it's available to you, to use it. It does tell you what a recommended amount is per click. So you can use that or you can use your own amount. Whatever they recommend, I usually go a few cents higher. And then you can set a daily budget, right? And I have found that obviously a higher daily budget is going to yield you more clicks, but you're also going to be paying more for those clicks, right? So I think going just a couple cents over what is recommended and start there and see how that works. If it actually gets you a lot of clicks, and if it is working, then maybe put a couple more cents on there, raise it a couple more cents. So you're beating out everybody else. You want to be seen, right? That is the whole point of having a promoted gig. So just try out a number and then see how it works and then adjust it from there afterward. But that's a great feature on Fiverr, the promotional gigs. Allison Bennett says to Mike Christensen, I've listened to dual POV retail samples that have segments from each narrator. I haven't heard samples of different sections with same narrator. That's a good point because there are, dual and duet narrations. So in that instance, it would be wise to have segments from both narrators included so the listener can hear both sides and decide whether or not they want to purchase this book. But I'd be curious to see what ACX says about that. Different sections with same narrator. Oh, I have a super chat from Shannon. Thank you, Shannon. Thank you for all your support and encouragement. I do consider you helping all of us every Tuesday as a form of coaching. Oh, well, thank you. I don't consider myself a coach. I just share what I know and help as best I can. I mean, I do have mentees and stuff, which I have another meeting in about an hour. So I need to wrap this up in about 45 minutes or so, maybe half an hour. But thank you for that. Thank you for the super chat. I really appreciate it. I can find where I left off. Good golly. Mike Christensen. Oh, I'm sorry, Chris at Mike Christensen. You can write a blurb for sample read on ACX. I looked this up because I want a blurb for the book I'm struggling with. It's okay. Just make it sound intentional with the read. The book blurb, like usually you find that on the back matter or inside the front cover of a book, right? You have a little bit of a what this is about, like a little bit of a synopsis, right? Yeah. You could use that too to sort of get you out of a funk or to use as a sample. Natural X Jasmine says, "Oh my goodness, I'm late. That's okay. Next time, if you're late, bring donuts. Bring enough for everybody." Because I like donuts. I like donuts a lot. Facebook user, good morning. Who is this? Natalie Blake. Good morning, Natalie. I appreciate you being here. Oh, we just got another super chat. Sean Luster 007. Thank you. Thank you so much for the super chat. I really appreciate that. Do allocate your time by project type, i.e. 2 hours for commercials, 2 hours for audiobooks, and 1 for VOs or some other system. I sort of just kind of roll with what I've got for the day, but if it's a large project, I'll do that for larger projects like audiobooks or large narrations like e-learning or meditations or something like that. If it's multiple files, I'll break up my days where like I'll do, okay, I need to do chapters 6 through 8 of this book. I need to do, columns 1 through 5 of this narration or, whatever it is. But usually if I have an order placed for a commercial or a short read or something like that, I'll just knock those out really quick, depending on what day I get them and what day they're due, of course, and what I'm doing for the day. So I just sort of roll with the punches on those. But if larger projects, I will definitely section those out so I can get those done as I go forward, if that makes sense. Nothing super specific, just whatever works, right, for the time that I have that day. Where did I leave off? Chris VGL says, "You are legally allowed to read blurbs, the back of the book, without copyright infringement. Now you're pulling out the paralegal in me." Well, thank you for that. That's good. There you go. Read the blurbs for your samples or demos. I always forget about those, but yeah, you're right. Like on the back matter of the book. Although some digital copies won't have that available, you might have to have a physical copy for the back matter blurbs, right? Facebook user says no training. Who is this? This is Doreen Marcotte. That's what I figured. You're saying no to the no training. Yeah, I gotcha. No training yet. That is Natalie. Okay. Thank you guys for joining in on Facebook. Mary says closing credit mandatory in ACX has to at least have the end in it if they didn't specify what they wanted. That is true if the end is not included in the body of the book. So if the book that you're reading doesn't have the end in the very last chapter of the end of the book, then make sure that the end is included at the end of your closing credits. Tiffany's 80s Dream says, one more question. What do you suggest for a newbie like me to do regarding VO while I save money for equipment because I'm broke as a joke right now? What should I do in the meantime? Practice out loud, reading out loud. And you could do some exercises. I heard of a great one. I was reminded of a great one the other day where you could it's called the straw technique, where you have a straw in your mouth and you're like you're enunciating around it to kind of, get better at pronunciation and enunciation as best you can with a straw. But reading out loud, getting involved in groups is definitely going to help. Watch a ton of videos, do all the research. Just don't get stuck in procrastinating learning stage. Just watch all the videos that you can, learn everything that you can. If you already have a DAW, I would highly recommend practicing with that. Although if you don't have any equipment, it might be difficult to do that. So I would say research, get involved in some groups, start asking questions, start learning all that you can, picking up those nuggets here and there. And then once you have your equipment, then start doing some practice audio files, right? Getting some recorded practice in, and then moving forward from there with getting feedback from those groups and so on and so forth. But I hear you. It's definitely every business you start is going to be some sort of investment involved, for sure. Mike Christensen says, thank you so much, Angela. Glad I was able to provide you with a couple ACX stumpers. I'll definitely let you know what I hear back from ACX. You're the best. No, you're the best, because I didn't even know those were a thing. So thank you for that. Give me food for thought, too. Kara says, I have an issue with my breathing. I can't say don't breathe. And I'm editing a lot around it. Do you have a technique you use to help with reducing breathing noises? No, I leave them in there. A normal breath in between sentences or in between, like this, when you're speaking in a sentence and you have to take a short breath to start the next sentence, those are completely normal. I wouldn't even bother with trying to remove those. It's the big breaths at the end of a long run-on sentence in a paragraph, or a difficult long sentence where you can't really take a pause to breathe, and you take that, that big breath at the end. Take those out, because those are a little bit distracting. But the normal natural breaths in between sentences or mid-sentence where there's a comma, maybe perhaps, leave those in. Because again, it's a human thing. We're humans reading books to other humans. So definitely don't let the breathing thing get you caught up and stuck and not moving forward, or maybe focusing too much on the little things that inevitably don't really matter, right? Like the breathing. So try leaving some of those breaths in. I'm sure it's fine. I'm sure that it's just something we're paying too much attention to because we're told to cut them out, right? Just the big ones. Leave the little ones in. Asher Thor says, good morning. I'm working on 2 books on ACX right now and struggle with the editing process. I do single band compressor, then normalize, then volume leveler. Is that too much for the mastering? I don't use a volume leveler unless you have to. I would say go back to your compression settings and adjust those by 1 or 2 dB, or the ratio, adjust the ratio. That way, when you have your compression applied and then you normalize to -3 dB, you should land somewhere between -18 and -23. I wouldn't keep adding more effects on top of it, because as we know, the more effects you add, it may do a little bit of harm, or end up, especially with a volume leveler, it might end up blowing out some sections where I think the compression needs to be adjusted so you can naturally, normally land where you need to. That's what I would do. Try that and see if that works better for you. But the least amount of effects you apply is going to be better for the end result audio file. EPHS says, a good way to make up characters is to sit in a busy place and pick people who are walking by and imagine what their voice thoughts may be. Then make up voices and record with phone and lapel mic. It's a great idea. Just sit and people watch and think about, watch their mannerisms, how they move, right? Are they talking, or do they gesticulate a lot, when they're walking around and talking? Or do they look contemplative? Do they look thoughtful? Do they look tired? Do they look mad, right? And then think up some inner monologue for them. That's a great way to develop characters, just to people watch and imagine. Use your creativity and imagination. I love that. It's a great idea. Reading to feed the mind. Thank you. No, thank you. Thank you for being here. Natural X Jasmine says, scrolling, I'm just starting out on Fiverr. Probably have made about $250 so far. Good. I'm quickly learning who the scammers and lowballers are. Also learning how to clarify my pricing so I'm not shorted. Good for you. And just keep going. Everybody starts out small, and then we build over time and then increase our prices and have repeat customers. It sort of snowballs after a while. But good job. Yeah, and just using your common sense. If If it walks like a duck and it talks like a duck, the chances are of it being a duck are fairly high, right? But stand up for yourself, know your worth, and if you're willing to bend on, maybe a discount here and there, then do it. If you think it's going to turn into be something you enjoy or something that might be like a volume client, like they might come back to you week after week for something, then that's your prerogative. You can discount your rate if you want to, but if it's a one-off kind of a thing, I have found that even clients where I felt was going to be a one-off have come back to me, every 6 months to a year to have something else done. So I think you'd be surprised, but whatever you decide for your pricing is your prerogative and how you want to handle that. Facebook user, let's see, who is this? Harold E. Harris Sr. Senior. Glad I caught you, Angela. I'm getting lots of clicks, 37. Well, lots for me. However, only one click. How important is the pic on your Fiverr page? Doing some troubleshooting. Your profile pic or your thumbnail? Thumbnails are important because we are visual creatures, for the most part, right? What is appealing to the eye? Not just your price point, but if your thumbnail looks like you took the time to create it, it's easy to read, it's eye-catching, that's going to be important. Your profile pic, me personally, I would rather see, as a consumer, I would rather see somebody's eyes. The person that I'm planning on working with, I would rather see a picture of them making eye contact with the camera, right? To make that connection, that human connection with. So personally, I think it's important, but it might not be what the issue is. But 37 clicks is, let's see, however, only one click. You mean like one job? That's fairly normal. I mean, that's, it's not 10%, but well, or is it? It's too early for math. But I would consider maybe adding a profile picture if you don't already have one, and maybe taking a hard look at your thumbnails and maybe redesigning them. Can't even tell you how many times I've redone my thumbnails. But you never know what's going to work. So just try it. Elizabeth says, thank you. Congratulations on Q. Do you do them one by one or a couple at the same time? It depends on the time frame I have with them. The ones I have now, I have one that I just finished narrating. I have another one that I'm in the middle of, actually two that I'm in the middle of narrating. And then I have another one starting in March. And then another one to be starting shortly around that same time. So they're in various stages of production, but it depends on when they're due. If most of the time I'll try to schedule appropriately, but as with Fiverr, as you know, someone can just come on there and place an order. So sometimes that happens and you're struggling with, juggling 2 or 3 at a time. But depending on how much time I have, I'll break them up and do one after the other, or I'll do a little bit of this one, a little bit of this one. And again, most of what I do is self-help or like, women empowerment or autobiographies and stuff like that. So there's not a whole lot of character development. So they're, I can usually get through them with just my talking voice, right? So I can do that. But you got to do what you got to do, right? Natural X Jasmine says procrastinating. Yeah, I heard that term, a couple years ago now. And I was like, man, that is the perfect description for what that is, right? Holding yourself back from moving forward because you need to learn something. I need to know this or I need to know that in order to move forward. You're holding yourself back in your procrastinating stage. Janeri is here. Hey, Janeri. Hi, Angela. Facebook user. Let's see. After this is Natalie Blake. After getting audiobook training and a demo, how do you go about choosing what style of books you want to audition for? Or should you audition for all of them to get experience? I would say audition for what you're comfortable with doing. Because like spicy books, if you're not comfortable with spicy books, don't audition for them. But if you are, then go get them. But I would start with the genre that you like reading, because if you enjoy what you're reading, then that's going to come through in the narration. It's going to be a much more enjoyable experience for you and the listener. So start with what you like and then audition for other stuff that maybe you want to try, right? Children's books or self-help or, crime fiction drama type stuff or horror or there's, as you know, there's tons of different genres. So try them all, but start with what you like reading. That will definitely be an awesome experience for you and the listener. Reading to feed the mind. Join your local Toastmasters group. It's cheap and will definitely help. Good points. Michael V says, I just had an idea for breaths and audiobooks. Listen to a bunch of samples on Audible and listen specifically for breaths. That should give you an example of what is acceptable method on ACX. I don't think there's any standard per se on breaths for ACX, but you will hear a lot of well-established narrators with, thousands of books under their belt. You'll hear them breathing. So breathing is not a bad thing. Don't focus too much on removing breaths. Just focus on the story. Focus on what you're reading, the intent, the purpose, the listener, who you are. Just focus more on that than, breaths or anything else that's going on. But you'll find that there are, just like Michael said, there's a lot of narrators, great narrators that leave their breaths in. Well, I'm sure they have audio engineers doing that part, but you'll see what I mean. Janeri says, just got back to my senses and started getting back on my feet in voiceover. Almost gave up, but not anymore. Good. Get back on your feet and get back out there. Good job, Janeri. Nadia says, hi, Kara. Try planning where you're going to take breaths on the scripts. And there are videos that help train proper breathing technique that will help breath in longer intervals and more quietly. Yes, and as you continue to narrate, you'll start to improve your lung capacity just by the practice of doing it. Reading out loud is going to help you to improve that lung capacity. And then you'll also, as you read aloud, you'll start to find natural places where you can leave a pause for effect, right? And then in that pause for effect, you can sneak in a little big breath if you need to, and then cut it out in post if you have to. But as you go along, you'll discover that there's a lot of places where you can take big breaths to be cut out later, or just, breathing techniques too, like meditation breathing techniques will help improve lung capacity to help you get through long sentences. But a lot of that I have found in my personal experience has come through just doing it, and the practice of doing it is learning where is an acceptable place to pause and take a breath, right? Kara says at Michael V, there are a few narrators I like, and they all have different styles. One doesn't seem to have any, and another has a specific breaths after each sentence. I just need to find mine, I guess. Yeah, whatever feels natural for you. Doesn't have to be any specific way. Just breathe. And whatever works for you, whatever helps you to stay in the flow of what you're narrating, right? Dr. 24 says, thank you. You're welcome. Tiffany's 80s Dream says, is there a way to ensure you get paid for your work on Fiverr or Upwork? Or is it just if you're scammed, you're scammed? Haha. I don't understand how a person can get scammed on those platforms. Well, it happens, unfortunately. And Fiverr is, I have found that most of the time they're going to side with the buyer. Although if there is something, if there's harassment, if there's something just egregious going on with this buyer, then, Fiverr will help you out the best they can. But it really helps to mind your P's and Q's up front, ask questions of the client. You can't prevent them from just placing an order, of course, but asking questions and canceling an order if it's not something that you're comfortable with or something that just feels off. Take the cancellation hit and keep moving forward, because there isn't really a way to stop scammers. I mean, they're going to be anywhere where you're available online, right? They're going to try to take advantage of you anywhere and everywhere that they can. So just ask a lot of questions. Make sure you're on the same page. And if something smells fishy, ask questions or say no, thank you, and move on, right? Block them and move on. But it does happen, unfortunately. Barb Cam says, "Hi, Angela. I'm having a hard time keeping my voice in the same level or tone. Any suggestions? I get louder or softer. Tone may change. How do you maintain?" Just with practice. Just with practice. I think um, if you can keep an eye on your DAW while you're narrating, like have it in like the bottom corner and then your script appear on your monitor, just to keep an eye on if you're talking too loud and then talking too low, talking too loud, talking too low, then maybe you can adjust going forward. But if it's not too extreme, the highs and the lows of your tone, you can always add a little bit of compression that will bring everything a little bit closer together. Your highs will become a little bit more even with your lows, and your lows will come up to be a little bit more even with your highs. It'll help sort of level out the volume of your voice to help not sound too high or too low. But it does take, again, practice to maintain the same level or tone as you're speaking. But you don't want to make it the tone, you don't want to make it too level and the same. Otherwise, you're going to sound monotonous and sound like an AI if there's no inflection or enunciation, right? Or no inflection. You want to just talk to somebody. And another way to keep yourself from sounding monotone is to start the script with a jump off. And this is where pick a name, or just pretend you're talking to somebody else. "Hey, Angela, I heard this really cool thing today, and this is what it is." And then go into your script. That will help kind of put your brain in the mindset of just conversational speech instead of just having to read words and in a single monotone level, right? Because you want to sound like a human. You want to inflect, you want to add emotion, right? So having the jump off before the script or before you start recording is something that's definitely helped me. Asher Thor says, "Thank very much." You're welcome very much. We're going to have to wrap this up here pretty soon. So I think I'm going to go through these last few comments and then I got to go. I have a meeting here pretty soon. I apologize, guys. Craig is here. Hi, Craig. Happy Tuesday. Just popping in to say hello. Keep sharing the wisdom, Doyen. Thank you, Craig. Glad to see you. Ty says, "Question. If you are going to do nonfiction and fiction children's books, should you have separate samples and Fiverr gigs for each?" You could. You definitely could. Samples, yes. You want to have samples that are different for each genre and then have one demo that's like a compilation of everything. So if you have like a publisher or an author with lots of different genres, you can send them a demo with all of them in it, but then you also want to have separate samples of each genre. That way, if you're uploading them to ACX, then if someone's looking for something in particular, they can find your particular sample, right? So have both. Fiverr gigs, you can have a Fiverr gig for audiobook narration, but I don't know if you can drill it down to children's books or nonfiction. I think you can. I guess you could try it. And the worst they could do is Fiverr may tell you, "Hey, you've got 2 gigs of the same. You're going to have to pick one." But as long as they are separate from each other, meaning this one's spicy books, this one's children's books, this one's, you know what I mean? If they're separate onto themselves, then you might be able to do that. But I just have one audiobook book gig that covers everything, just to make it easier for people to understand and find me, right? Annie Waybright says, "Regarding spicy books, is there any detriment to using your actual name instead of a pseudonym? Could it keep you from getting average, like radio podcast commercial work?" Some people, some very well-known voice actors don't use a pseudonym. I think it's a choice, right? I think you could run into the possibility of, if you're offered a job to be the voice of a brand, right? And it's a brand that is tied in with children, and then they do a Google search on you and find that you've narrated all these spicy books, that could be a problem depending on what that company thinks about that situation, right? Or if you have small children at home and you don't want them coming across your spicy audiobooks, or their friends or something like that. Those are the things that I think about when talking about using pseudonyms for spicy books, but it's really your choice. If you're comfortable with it and you're like, it is what it is, my name is my name across everything that I do, then fine. But if you want to use a pseudonym for spicy books because of everything that we mentioned, then do that. But that is definitely something to think about. Kirk. Hi, Kirk. Morning, darling. Just popping in for some inspiration. Indeed. I miss you. Come back to the meetings. Miss your voice and your face and your insight. Mr. Woody. Hi, I just popped in. I heard someone mention voiceover training. Where should I start? Oh, that's a loaded question. Voiceover training. You could start again with joining some Facebook groups and picking up knowledge there, finding a mentor or a coach to help you learn the things that you don't know, right? In either performance, reads, interpreting scripts, saying words properly. The audio engineering aspect of it, the mastering and the editing process. Start where you feel comfortable starting with in terms of finding the right avenue or person to work with. Kara says, thanks at Nadia. Ty says, I don't think ACX checks your samples. I had to go specifically to ACX Audible approved narrators to listen to some good samples. I could be wrong. Do you know what it takes to be Audible approved? Yes, you have to, as far as I understand, you have to have a certain number of books under your belt and you have to apply to be Audible approved, I believe. I looked at it once, like a while ago. I haven't looked at it recently of what the parameters are, but I think that information is probably somewhere on ACX. But I think you have to apply to be Audible approved. And I'm sure there's standards for that before you even apply. Facebook user, let's see, who is this? This is Natalie Blake. Regarding Fiverr scammers, I haven't started audiobook training, etc. yet. So what questions would you or should you ask in order to weed out the scammers? Depending on how they start the conversation, just ask questions to clarify, perhaps, or to verify what it is they're saying. If we're talking about audiobooks, I always ask if the username has nothing to do with the name on the book, because I always ask for the manuscript up front, because I want to make sure that I'm comfortable with the content. I want to verify the word count, and I want to check and see who the author is and how they relate to the person talking to me. And if they don't match, then I'm going to ask, who is this person in regards, in relation to you? And it could be a pen name, it could be their husband, it could be that they're a publisher, it could be any number of things. But then in asking that question, you might have somebody say, oh, well, it's a college textbook that I need to, because I just don't have time to read it. I want someone to read it to me. Sorry, I'm not going to do that. Just asking questions is going to help you sort of suss out who is doing something that shouldn't be done or something where they're trying to take advantage. Joy West says, hi, Angela. I have a Snowball Ice from Blue Yeti. Unfortunately, I purchased it before the lesson on microphones, but it's a $50 USB and it works for me. But I hear so much bad stuff about cheap mics. The Snowball Ice, I'm trying to imagine which one that is. Oh, that's the one with the little, it's got a little circle. Okay. I know a lot of people who use that one. So I wouldn't consider that like a cheap mic, but at some point you're going to want to upgrade it to an XLR mic with an interface because it is a better audio quality. Although USB mics these days are just fabulous. They're even better today than they were just a few years ago. So the technology is improving quite a bit in even USB mics. So I wouldn't count them out, but eventually you will want an XLR mic with an interface. So Craig says, hey, Kirk, Nerugian. Am I saying that right? Hello, Angela. First time here. Love your videos. Well, thank you for joining. I hope I didn't butcher your name. I always feel terrible trying to pronounce people's names. Tiffany's 80s Dream says, how does one market themselves for video game VO? Social media. reach out to, if you want to find an agent that works specifically in video games, you could do that too. Having a Fiverr gig that's specifically for video game animation, um, cartoon kind of work, then that would be something, another way for people to find you. But social media is got such a wide reach. I definitely wouldn't discount that either for, video game VO. Reaching out directly to small production companies as well, like video game software, production companies. You can reach out to them directly and say, hey, can I talk to your talent director? I would like to perhaps audition for something, or if there's anything you guys are working on. So don't hold yourself back. Just go for it. Just reach out to whomever you can find. Tony Paris, thank you. Thank you, Tony. Kirk says, I'm in rehearsals for a show. Oh, I think I may be able to pop in this Thursday. Hey, folks, consider going platinum and like this live. Platinum, not like platinum hair, but my platinum group. Yes. We've had quite a few new people join, and the group is getting pretty large, but I still really enjoy everybody getting together on Thursdays, and we all read for each other, and it's a lot of fun. And I learned so much from you guys. Yes, and like this live. Smash that thumb. The one on YouTube, not your finger thumb. Pamela, have a great meeting and thanks. See you next week. Thank you so much, Pamela. I appreciate you. Annie says, thank you so much for your advice. Have a wonderful day. Same to you. Same to you. Barb Cam, thank you. Have a great day. You too, Barb. Mr. Woody, follow-up question specific to audiobook reading. How do I find jobs to submit a sample reading? How do you find jobs to submit a sample reading? You will be asked to provide a sample reading on places like Fiverr or Upwork. Someone will find your profile and they'll reach out to you and say, hey, I have this audiobook, but just to make sure that you're the voice that I think that you have, see if you're going to be a fit for this. Could you perhaps read like a short complimentary section of this for me so I can see if your voice is a fit? Or if you go on to some of the voiceover casting sites like voices.com, Voice123, places like that, where you can audition as a paid member, you can audition, and that's how you can do a sample reading too. But for audiobook reading, ACX, of course, you can audition for books there as well. Chris VGL says, thank you. I'm going to record something today, even if it's not chapter 1. Good. Determined to do this now. Love you all. Good. I hope so. Kirk, smiley face. Blaze. Cool. Nehru-ji-san. 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 I hope that's right. But just Nehru is great. Cool. What advice or recommendations for breathing exercises? Breathing exercises, if you've ever heard of box breathing, a lot of these are, they come out of the meditation exercises where you take a deep breath in, deep breath out. Box breathing is when you inhale, hold it for 4, like inhale for 4, hold it for 4, exhale for 4, and then take a pause for 4, and then you start again, right? That's basically box breathing. But good deep breaths is definitely going to be good for you. And then also practicing out loud is a good way to feel your lung capacity and improve it, right? Reading out loud is definitely going to help with that too. But a lot of meditation practice has great breathing exercises. Plus, meditations are good for you too. A little relaxation. Natural X Jasmine says, thank you for your expertise in this community, Angela. Well, thank you for joining our community. Eric, hello, Kirk. See, everybody misses you, Kirk. Thank you so much for your time and for sharing such helpful info. That was Natalie Blake. Well, thank you for joining in, Natalie. I appreciate you. Tiffany's 80s Dream says, thanks for answering my questions, Angela. Of course. That's what we're here for, right? Masonry Construction. At its core, VO work is storytelling. There are multiple storytelling opportunities to perform live. They will bless others and you. Just do it. Couldn't have said it better myself. Just do it. Hat Pauser is here. Good morning. Good late morning. That's okay. At least you made it, right? Nehru says, thank you very, very much. I am familiar with box breathing. Been trying to minimize mouth breath noises and was told to practice breathing exercises. Yeah, the box breathing is an easy one to remember. But, deep breath in, deep breath out, just especially before starting a new project, you sort of need to reset your own brain, right? To kind of stop with the mental focus of whatever it is that you were just doing to move into a new space, right? Just to take a breath, reset for a second, read through the script, interpret it, and then start the recording for the next thing. But breathing is important. All right, guys. You know what? I think we're going to have to close this up for today. I've got a meeting coming up here very shortly, so I'm going to have to call it a day. But thank you, everybody, for being here. I really appreciate you. We'll be here. Hopefully you will be here next Tuesday, same bat time, same bat channel, Tuesday at 12 p.m. EST. And everybody have a fabulous week, and I will see you then. Bye.